We don't just need to carry under 30. We don't need to just carry black votes. We have to have a robust turnout in both of these demographics, and I don't see any evidence right now that that's happening.
It sounds to me like you think if the election were held today, Biden would lose.
Well, me and everybody else.
President Biden facing criticism and concern from within his own party, as a majority of Americans say they support the House GOP's impeachment inquiry into him. His re-election campaign slammed the scandal before it can get off the ground. So joining us now is Fox News contributor Karl Rove. Karl, David Axelrod, who is an Obama advisor, as you know him well, he also talked about his concern. Listen here.
The Wall Street Journal poll was, very, very dark in terms from a Biden standpoint. Job approval down, ratings generally down. Most of the comparatives with Trump, not good. What I worry about, you guys, from a Biden standpoint is these are the kind of things you get when people are starting to rationalize their votes.
Karl, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it's two senior statesmen of the Democratic Party raising warning flags and being ignored by the Biden White House. But they're, in my opinion, absolutely right. These numbers, and it's not just the recent numbers, it is numbers for months and months and months, show that Joe Biden is ill-prepared to wage a winning campaign. 3 out of every 4 Americans think he's too old, including nearly 7 out of every 10 Democrats, and 2/3 of the American people think he lacks the mental acuity and stamina to be effective in the Oval Office. Those are not going to turn around easily, and this administration has done nothing to do so. In fact, they've demonstrated, sort of a political tone deafness by defending Bidenomics. It's a basic fundamental principle of marketing. If you don't have a good product, don't put your name on it, and they don't have a good product with Biden economics, and they put their name on it.
Okay, all right, so here's the Wall Street Journal poll. We'll just show our viewers that, number 3. Trump 47, Biden 43. That's a national poll. And today there were new battleground swing states that came out, and they showed Trump with a lead over Joe Biden in every single one of those states. So I don't know what you're reading in those polls, and I don't know whether or not they change on the following topic, all right? So this is what Dana and I watched yesterday. Hunter Biden on the Hill blaming MAGA Republicans et al.
For 6 years, MAGA Republicans, including members of the House committees who are in a closed-door session right now, have impugned my character, invaded my privacy. They have tried to dehumanize me, all to embarrass and damage my father, who has devoted his entire public life to service.
I was listening carefully to people who worked in previous administrations last night. And all of them said, like during the Trump years, when all this impeachment stuff started rolling, they admitted that it was a distraction to them and how they did their job. How do you forecast that over the next 12 months, or 10 months, I should say, during an election year for this White House?
Well, it is going to be a distraction. Now, remember, this is not an impeachment. It's an impeachment inquiry, and the distinction is important. They're trying to get to the facts. They're trying to figure out, was there a financial connection between Hunter Biden's activities and his father? We know that there was a connection between his father and Hunter Biden's business activities. The president facilitated it and tolerated it. I have to admit, I was taken aback by Hunter Biden's comments yesterday. If he was so deeply and is so deeply concerned about his father's position in public life, then why in the heck did he conduct himself in the way that he did for years and years and years, failing to pay his taxes, trading on his father's name, getting involved in inappropriate business activities where he was drawing attention to the fact that he was the son of the vice president of the United States and had no business being involved in those, involved with a Chinese company controlled by the Communist Party, being on the board of an energy company in Burisma in Ukraine, when he had no experience in energy, no experience in corporate governance, and no experience in the country in the country itself. And yet he is now lecturing us. You're doing this to destroy my father. Well, if your father is hurt by this, there's one person to blame for it, and it is Hunter Biden.
Well, we'll see, Karl. I mean, I think that it would be different if Biden had an approval rating of, over 50%, like say if it was at 58%, then the impeachment inquiry might not look like something that is going to get a lot of attention. But when you're at the numbers he's at, then people are already in the mindset that there's a problem.
Yeah, and look, 24% of Democrats think that the impeachment inquiry is justified. 24, 1 out of every 4 Democrats is saying, you know what, this stinks enough that we ought to be looking into it. But you're right to raise a cautionary note. The Republicans have got to be very, very careful of overreach. This is an inquiry to get the facts. It is not an impeachment per se, and they don't need to get ahead of the facts. They need to let the facts roll out and then act upon them. If the president is tied into this financially, that's one thing. But if it is merely his son out there trading on his name, particularly when he was vice president in the previous administration, then they got to be very careful about overreaching and seeming to try and impeach him for something that happened when he was vice president under
There's
Barack
one report
Obama.
out of Politico has a timeline here. By late January, we will know that whether or not they're going to vote on that. So we'll
Busy month ahead.
Hey, thanks, Carl. Merry Christmas to you.
Have fun shopping.
Same to you.
Thank you, brother.
Oh,
see you
painful,
soon.
painful.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.